Hey, busy business people. I am here today with another entrepreneur taking action, Christoph Nauer. He is the Amazon best-selling author of From No Time to Free Time, 6 Steps to Work-Life Balance for Business Owners. And he just received an author's award from Take Center Stage. And I'm getting the scoop on how he did it. So to kick things off, Christoph, what made you decide to write a book?
Well, I try to keep this story short and to the point, but my coach has been telling me to write a book for years. And like so many other people, I have a master's degree in excusitis. And so I had all kinds of excuses. I can talk, I can do this, but I'm not a writer. So I think it was late last year, I did a training for the person who became my coach to write the book. And so she said to me after the training, "So when are you going to write your book?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not a writer." So again, I gave her the spiel, the reasons why I've never written a book. And then, so she finally said, "Well, you just did a recording, a training for my team." I said, "Yes, that's right." And then she said, "Well, don't you usually record those trainings?" And I said, "I do." And she said, "Okay, there's your book." And I'm like, "Huh?" So all of a sudden, I was like, it took her to kind of give me the little push and so I said, okay, well, you obviously know what you're talking about because that's what you do. So I did go ahead and had my training transcribed. And then a good friend of mine who is an editor and, well, a writer, she really is a writer. She then took that transcription and turned it into an actual book. So it was basically those two women who are responsible for this. If it hadn't been for them, that book would still be somewhere in my head or, the recording or whatever it was. So once I realized that, I started working with Melanie Warner with Defining Moments. She became my book coach. And Joy Montgomery, my ghostwriter, she took my content and turned into what became this book. Of course, there's more steps involved in that, but that's in a nutshell how this whole thing happened. And it's it's a funny story, but that's just the way it is. Um, and now, gosh, we launched in mid-July, and it's already received bestseller status on Amazon. So it's been a fantastic journey and exciting too.
Awesome. That's one of the tips I give people all the time for one of the easiest ways to make a, because so many entrepreneurs are out there sharing their expertise all the time, especially nowadays. They're doing webinars, they're doing courses, they're doing training events, they're doing so many different things where all that knowledge is coming out, but for some reason they don't make it into a book. Like, it's so easy if you have all the recordings to get someone else to help you with it. So I love that you're actually doing what I tell people to do all the time. I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
um,
it was an exciting journey, and I think I always talk about how time can have future value. And so when you do a training, uh, record those trainings
mhm.
because you create the training once and it's very time consuming, but then so you can use it again, record it.
Yeah.
So I
There's
talk
so
about that.
much that can come out of that whenever you're doing those recordings. I mean, you can turn it into blog articles, you can turn it into books, you can take pieces and turn it into mini trainings. Like, there's so much stuff you can do that's still so valuable when you have those recordings. It's like, I love it when people do that. That's kind of my bag. Like, one of my companies that I own is a content production company. So it's like content's kind of my thing.
Okay.
So I love that, like, you're actually doing what I tell people to do all the time, and it's just so powerful. Now, having a book, how has that helped your business? How are you using it now that you have it?
Well, I still have to get used to it whenever I introduce myself as blah blah blah. My name is, and stuff that people don't really care about. What is it that you do? It's the part of the infomercial that nobody cares about. But but saying as part of the infomercial, I'm an Amazon best-selling author. I have to really remind myself to include that in the introduction. Because that's what I've been told. And so it's an awesome feeling. I have in the little award that I received, I have it on the bookshelf behind me. So when I'm on Zoom, usually it's up sitting on the top left-hand corner. So I try to show it off. Um, But
It's
what it
definitely a
does,
credibility factor for knowing your craft, you know?
yes, exactly. That's what it is. And having it on my homepage, get my book. It's right there. Of course, it's linked to Amazon, but that doesn't matter. It's right there. It's exciting because I think what it does, it establishes an expertise. You know, you become when you are an author and a published best-selling author, it just gives you more expert status. I mean, it just
Mhm.
does something that, and I've always wanted that. These people in the network, to hold up the book and say, yeah, but, and I was like, that's kind of cool. So my book right now is just an ebook. The printed version is coming out probably about the end of October or early November, because there's still one of the things I'm doing right now, listening to my book coach. Because as a coach, I want my clients to listen to me and do what I do. So I need to do the same when I hire a coach. So she's recommending that now that I have best-selling status, I'll find more either co-authors or book sponsors. So hey, this is a best-selling book. If you provide an excellent service for business owners, do you want to be listed in my book? you know Now, so you have to, in order to be considered, you have to have a service that's a benefit to business owners, and there will be only one per business category. So I wouldn't have three bookkeepers in there or three CPAs. That wouldn't be nice. That'd be, so that's what I'm working on right now, is adding more sponsors or guest authors before the print version then comes out.
That's a neat approach, though. So, like, that actually accomplishes something else I tell people to do all the time, which is collaborative content. It's a great way to meet people that could potentially be clients or could refer clients to you when you work together to produce any kind of content. It can be things like podcast episodes, obviously, that's an easy one, or blog articles, or books, but you're working together on that collaborative content strategy. That was one I learned from James Carberry. He has a book called Content Based Networking, and he
Mm,
talks about that strategy in that book. So that's one
okay.
really cool way to use books. I've also seen people do some neat things too, like they'll mail their book to a new client, part of the new client onboarding. So it kind of indoctrinates the client, gives them something physical in the mail, and it's a cool approach. So I've
Hmm.
seen people do that. I've also seen them mail their book to potential clients. So somebody that they wanted to get in the door of, and they can use that as like a snail mail way to get in and be like, hey, I would love to talk to you, but in the meantime, here's a book kind of thing. So there's some cool things you can do with books. So it's like, as soon as you said you had one and you had the best selling status to it, let's talk. Because
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
that's something so many people need to do. And obviously, you specialize in helping entrepreneurs that say they don't have time. Like that's your kind of niche. And I know that's a really common excuse people have for putting off, writing a book or building a course or doing any number of important things in their business. Like, do you have any advice for somebody who is just like, putting it off because they don't have time? How do you just overcome that hump?
You mean the famous procrastination?
Yep.
Yeah. There's two types of procrastinations. There's one that's a good one, and then there's one that's a bad one. The good one is the proactive procrastination. And what that means is you look at all the things you have to do and decide what things you can drop, or things that can wait. This all goes back to my training by Brian Tracy, on when I took his certification program a few years back as a time management master. And his training is based on his book, Eat That Frog. And I always say to folks, that has nothing to do with a culinary dish. It really has to do to tackle that biggest and most challenging. Yeah, there you go. Biggest and most challenging task first. And I just talked to a client a week ago, and he talked about him um, dabbling in not eating the frog, basically. And that's one of the things I see constantly. We do the things that are easier. It's like water. Water seeks the easiest way down a hill. So we are like water. We look for the easiest way and do the easiest things first. But what that really does is the big challenging task is still there. It's not going away. What it does, it makes it become bigger and more challenging, and like you're having a backpack and you add a rock to it every day. Eventually it just kind of pulls you down. And then what that does too, it zaps your productivity, motivation, energy, the whole 9 yards. So you look back at a time when you tackled the challenging task first, you feel like $1,000,000 afterwards. It gives you new energy. You feel excited. What's next? So your productivity goes through the roof, and that's exactly what he's talking about. So decide on what things to procrastinate on. Is the proactive procrastination, and that's a good one. The other one is not tackling the things. You're not eating the frog, basically. And ultimately, you have to ask yourself, what's the best use of my time today? We all get 24 hours. Nobody gets more. Warren Buffett says it great. He says, I can buy anything in the world I want except time. So we need to decide, okay, how do we want to spend our time? Is this particular item important enough for me to dedicate time to it? And if it's a big task, break it down. How the saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But not tackling it is just getting, it's not going away. Plus, you don't see the results.
Yeah, and I
So,
know that sounds like a lot of, just kind of mental fluff and, hokey to some people out there, but I mean, I started doing it. I bought the book, Eat the Frog. I had a coach that was telling me about that strategy and recommending that everybody do it. He was talking about more like in your quarterly planning, like, take your big frog and go after it first. But like I started doing it every day. Like I worked it into my daily planner. I put that down. I started doing it. I'm not going to say I'm perfect. Some days I take the easy path, but
yeah, of course.
most days I try and do the frog, and it really does kind of help. It seems so weird that such a simple strategy would actually work, but it does. It sets that tone a little bit more for that thing that was just like weighing on you that you're dreading doing. That's just, it's gonna be time consuming. It's gonna be awful. And you do it when you've got your highest energy in the day, like when you first sit down to get
Mm-hmm.
started, and you're
Right.
like I think one thing for me was, I used to check my email first. I'd sit down, I'd check on my email, and then I would go to my task list. And by then I'm kind of sapped. Like my energy's a little gone. So when I started doing the frog before email, that was a game changer for me.
Yep.
It just made the whole thing work, but
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, so that means you're familiar with Brian Tracy's prioritization process, the ABCDE method, and the A or the frogs, and don't do a B task as long as there's A tasks. And the big one for my clients is the D and the E, delegate, eliminate.
yep.
So don't do things that could be done by somebody else. And so many people,
Yeah.
they
And I've
just
never thought about like having that procrastination be positive. That was a neat thing that you just said. Like, there is a world in which procrastination is positive, and that makes a lot of sense. It's like, yeah, I even set my little daily planner thing that I do up that way so that it's um got my frog and it's got like I guess this would be A's, my must do's, then my should do's, then quick task I can do if I got 15 minutes before a meeting. And then if I can, I'll get to these.
Well, I can tell from what you're just saying, you're totally doing the stuff that I talk to my clients about, and what it is you productivity just skyrockets, And I
Yep.
think the other method that he's talking about is the famous 90-15-90. 90 minutes uninterrupted time working on a project, take a 15-minute break and do it again. And the key in that is the uninterrupted. So phone off, email off, everything off. You close your office door. If you have people living with you, you tell them when the door is closed, that means do not enter.
Yeah.
And some of the clients, I asked them to actually put a little sign on the door, do not enter. And then they have to then enforce that. Some people can't read or don't care what's on the door and still walk in. And so that means you have to then not answer that question, but tell them, hey, bye. So things like that. But it's absolutely stunning. If you implement that 90-15-90, you're killing it. And that's
And now it's like I'm still working up to that. It's like I've managed to do it when at least while I'm doing my frog.
Hmm.
It's like I try and avoid any interruptions while I do the frog. And most of the time, the frog can be done in 90 minutes or less. So that, I guess I'm kind of doing it in a way without intending to do it.
Yeah. Well,
But it's
whether you do
like,
it
it just makes
consciously
it
or
easier.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that those are huge. So yes, I mean, you obviously you're learning from the best. Brian Tracy. I've been on his email list for ever since I started my coaching practice. So he is just fantastic. Plus the other
Little
thing.
things I've been told for years, but it's like they just sound like that can't really be that big of a deal. Like it just, there's so much disbelief. I feel it's like I've heard that you should do these things, but it was when I finally just said, I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to try it and I'm just going to see how it works. And it did. I mean, I think you still kind of lack the accountability component sometimes. Like it's hard to be personally accountable. And I think that's where working with a coach like you kind of makes a lot of sense too. Cause like you kind of need someone to be like, okay, well, maybe this piece doesn't work exactly like that for you. Like 90, 50, 90 might be impossible. You might not be able to focus for 90 minutes at a time. Maybe you're somebody who really struggles with that and you need to do 45 minutes worth. Like working with somebody who has experience helping me through that, I think is really powerful.
Yeah, I think you said a key word here, the accountability. I mean, I use that in when I use try to use storytelling to illustrate some of my points I'm making. I way back when I grew up in Switzerland in Zurich, and I used to go to the gym with a friend, and that was before cell phone, believe it or not. So when he canceled and said, "Hey, I can't make it today," guess what happened? The chances of me going by myself dropped by about 75%. Again, going back to what I said earlier, excellent at making up excuses. And so having that set appointment, hey, we met, I think it was twice or three times a week at a certain time where we would meet at the gym, and that accountability, having somebody to do that with. So like that's what I say when folks have a hard time going for walks or runs or whatever that is, like, hey, why don't you go with somebody? You know, then it's more likely to happen. And of course, as you said, one of my rules is accountability and say, hey, did you do what we said you were going to do? And if not, why not? So yes, once you know why you didn't do something, then you can actually do something about it.
Wow, that kind of dovetails nicely into my next question that I had for you. Like in your coaching business, like you niche down into a very specific pain point, time management. I'm assuming you help with more than just time management, but a lot of your marketing materials and stuff speak to that. And I know that's something I tell people to do all the time. Get really hyper focused on solving a specific pain point and dig in from that. Like, was that always your focus, or did you do like a lot of us do and kind of start broader as a coach and work your way down into that being like the biggest pain point, or like how did that work?
Yes, kind of. As you once you get trained as a coach, you know nothing. I mean, you may have a little piece of paper, whatever it is, and that's that's when you realize how little you know. So it's basically it was about four 4 or 5 years ago where my coach told me that it was time for a branding, a rebranding, and that's when my branding coach basically told me you need a new business name, new logo, new website, basically new everything. I was like, oh my gosh. And that's the scary part is when the I always say the growth happens once you're willing to step outside your comfort zone. And I was pushed way out my comfort zone, but I knew I had to do it. So that's when I came up with the business name Balance Six. And the six that I believe we need to balance are time and money, health, relationship, self improvement, and higher power or spirituality. If we balance those six, that's when we're at our best. And time is the overarching, you know, thing, everything that keeps it all together. How we allocate time to these six areas is really what it's all about. So how this is how it came about, and so realizing that we all have the same amount of time. Nobody's better at it. Nobody's whether how rich or poor you are, it doesn't matter. We all get the 24 hours. Now it's up to us how we use that. And having been married for over 30 years, raising three kids, my wife and I, we were always working full time. And so you juggle a gazillion things. And what happens then is the last thing you do is something for yourself. Now, if the last thing you do is something for yourself, that means you eventually run out and empty. You get resentful. You get all the things, the emotions that come with that. And as a parent, it's not fair to the kids because they'll see, oh, what parenting is all about. Oh, okay, a parent is resentful, stressed, tired. To make the list. So self-care, I realized, is something that is critically important and is an A task. It's not an E task or a C task. And so I use this in my trainings too. I tell this story where my wife and I finally said, we need a break. So we hired a babysitter, and as we were pulling out of the driveway, the kids were standing on top of the driveway with the babysitter, and they were chanting. They were chanting, party, party, And my wife and I look at each other and say, there's something wrong with this picture. We feel guilty for leaving them with a babysitter, and they're throwing a party. You know. Now, of course, things are different with a babysitter or an aunt or an uncle or grandparent. Of course, that's the way it should be. But it gives the kids a chance to have a good time with whoever is watching them, and it gives the parents a chance to recharge their batteries. So that's the self-care in there. Here in the category will be the relationship part. If you're in a committed relationship, have a date night once a week so that you don't look at each other 10 years after you got married and had kids. Hey, who are you? How come we're living together? But that quite often happens because, there you go. The kids arrive. The focus is the kids and the careers and the jobs, and the two parents, they kind of like, they're passing like ships in the sea. Um,
I know that's really important to do. I mean, as my kids got older, they're 16 and 18 now, about to be 17 and 19. They're getting old on me. But like, they actually get excited when me and David go on date nights. I mean, they're like, my daughter will be like, we've got it. My dad lives with us. So like, we'll take care of Grandpa. I'll make dinner tonight. It'll be okay. You two need to go out and have fun. It's like, okay.
Yes.
If we need to. Yeah. And it's just a different world. But I mean, I've been really like, I'm always involved with my kids and what's going on with the businesses and help them understand, like, this is why we're doing what we're doing. Like, it's for your future and ours. And like now they work with me on it. And my son's actually the one that produces these podcast episodes for me. So it's like they've both kind of gotten involved with it. We've just taken a different approach. But yeah, I love that self-care tasks, I mean, they do have to be an A. You have to make time. And you do feel different when you do. You feel guilty to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Like you really do. But after a little bit, it's like, okay, I need this. Like I've started getting a lot more selfish with just my schedule. Like every week I block out like that week and the next week. Mm-hmm. Like I lock it down, like no more new appointments.
Right.
And that has been a game changer.
Yes.
Because like so many people have my calendar link nowadays that, I'll have myself mentally prepared for that day. And then a meeting would pop in and it's like, oh, wait, what? No, I had my time scheduled for today. I knew what I was going to do. And now this threw me off. So it's like just being able to do that and know that this week is set in stone unless I choose to let someone in.
Right.
That's just been a game changer.
Yep. Yeah, we have, one of my clients says to me, hey, so that's so nice that you give me permission to put myself first. Like, you don't need my permission. Another client said similar to what you said, I'm becoming really greedy about my time. It's like, awesome, good,
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
To.
Yes, you have to. Exactly.
I mean, you just have to. You can't plan your day. You can't. It's like having your frogs and stuff like that. If you're letting other people change your schedule, then you can't plan because it's like halfway through doing your frog, it'll change into another frog, that's more important. And you can't do it.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. And that's the thing is so many of my clients they start the planning, they have a schedule, but then they'll stick with it. They give it away to others, to clients. But the client needs this. Well, you need to let the client know when you're available and when you're not available.
And most clients don't mind it. They really don't. Not the ones that you like working with. Now, it's not to say that every client is going to be very graceful about it. But let's be honest, the ones that wouldn't be very graceful about it, probably not the ones you want to spend your days with anyway. You know what I mean? Like, They need to understand and have some basic empathy and to get a little bit more organized themselves. And when my schedule stopped being so open to them, they started getting a lot more organized. They started sending me things in an email or a Slack message instead of being like, hey, can we get on a call? And I started accomplishing a lot more, getting more done because they weren't interrupting me with little 5-minute Zoom calls and 15-minute Zoom calls and like, hey, can we get on a Zoom call? It was like, can you just like, that didn't need to be a Zoom call. You
Right.
could have like filmed me a quick little Loom and shot it over to me and Slack and called it a day. Like that didn't need to be 30 minutes of my life
Yep.
that you could have done in a 5-minute video. Like,
Exactly. It's training your clients, and training the people that you work with. Or if you've given it away, retrain them and say, okay, maybe that was the past me. The new me is different. If you want to talk to me, this is how it works. Or instead of having the team come to you anytime they want. I just talked to a client about that yesterday. Have set times when you say, okay, if you need something from me, these are the time slots. These are my open office door hours. Even though they're virtual, it doesn't matter. So that they know. That every five. Plus, the other thing too is try to solve the problem on your own. We have the internet. Oh, what's that? We have Google. What's that? So we can find answers to most questions. So instead of bugging her with, well, what about that? Try to find the answer yourself. You might even come back with some new ideas that you can then share with the boss and say, hey, I just found this awesome thing. Do you think we could implement that?
and I've seen that happen. It's like ever since I started locking my schedule, that did a couple of different things. Cause like my team, we've got like 30, 35 writers at Content Ninjas and we have them all in Slack. So it's like we all work remotely and they can get to me anytime in there. But I also have Slack connected to my Google Calendar. So like it shows a little icon that I'm unavailable. I'm in a meeting. So when I locked my schedule, like I basically just create an event that spans 2 weeks and I just keep moving it every week so that it's this week and next week. But it shows me as in a meeting in Slack. So they know not to expect an immediate response. And I started getting a lot less questions. They started kind of troubleshooting more stuff on their own. They would talk to each other. Like we have a group thing where they can all just go ask questions. So they started asking each other questions that some of our more experienced writers would answer. And it was like I ended up not having to do as much support for the team. Just like I didn't have to do as much support with my clients. Like a lot of them would figure things out on their own. And they started only coming to me when it made sense.
That's perfect. I mean,
Yep.
you said it, you put it perfectly. That's exactly right. And people need to create a system for this stuff. It's not just like, okay, let's get up every morning and start putting out fires. I mean, that's not a way to run a business because you're going to be on empty real fast.
Well, and there's a balance when you're making systems too. Like I see so many people buy all of these, like, Eat the Frog books and little planners, and they buy all this stuff, and it's like they try and use it exactly the way it says, and that might not work for them. Like a lot of people say to plan your day first thing in the morning. That doesn't work for me. I have to do it the night before because when I first sit down, my brain doesn't want to think about planning. And if I have to start planning, now I'm getting into my emails and looking at my calendar. And next thing I know, 2 hours is.
Yep.
But if I do it at the end of the day, it's like I kind of know what was going on during that day and I can do my planning in like 30 minutes for the next day. And it's so much faster. So it's like you got kind of find what works for you.
Exactly.
I found. And it's like I think working with a coach, they have experience. They've seen people do the exact same things that you're going through. And it's like, and they've seen what the other side of it can look like and have all kinds of advice and tips and tricks and things that can help you versus you just stumbling through. Like I've probably been through 30 planners myself. And before I found one that kind of worked, and I made this one in Canva and I've tweaked it like 10 times to get it where it works for me.
Yeah. And that's the key. When people ask me, what's the best way? And I said, well, each person is different, for me, it's this thing. If it's not in here, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so you have a planner that's a little bigger, whatever works. But the key is you want to have when you wake up in the morning, you want to have a GPS for the day. You want to have a plan for the day. You know what you're going to do first, then next, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm one of those that like my brain doesn't kick into gear. I'm not an early morning person. I have narcolepsy, so when I first wake up, I'm kind of in a fog. I've got to get that first cup of coffee down me. But I found out like while I'm in a in a fog, I can work on my frog. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I've already listed out what I need to do. I have the steps for the frog. I did it the night before. So
Hmm.
well, it's like I don't have to activate all executive function when I first sit down at my desk. And that's what I need. That
Right.
worked for me. My executive function kicks on more like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay. Well, and that's you're absolutely right. You bring up a great point. It's you. Each person has to know when he or she is at his or her best. You know, so you don't want to tackle challenging, difficult tasks. You know, at the end of the day when you're tired. But for some people, I had a client. She said she was at the best like at midnight. Midnight to 2 in the morning or whatever. So, okay, that's when I sleep. But she's at her best at that time. And then she said, but then people want to meet with me in the morning. I said, well, you're not available. Simple as that. Your first
That's what I
appointment.
started doing. It's like
Yeah.
occasionally I'll make myself available early in the morning for different time zones if I need to, but it's not a regular occurrence. It's like, even with my husband, it's like I had to tell him to give me the freedom to get back up. Like I would go to bed with him if I couldn't sleep. I was like, I'm just going to get back up and work. If my brain's going 1,000 miles an hour, it's because I need to go do something. So I'm going to get up and go do it real quick and then I'll come back to bed. And that's been helpful. I've started knocking out a lot of stuff that way just because that's how my brain works.
Yes. And why would you fight? You know yourself. You,
Yeah.
you know yourself best, and so it's allow it to happen. You know,
Especially in
it's
today's world, we can set our schedules and work with people all over the world. Like, if you struggle at a different, then work with people in a different time zone. Like I've got a lot of clients that are Pacific time zone. They're 3 hours behind me, and that's great. It's like they're getting up and getting their day started at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. That's like 11, 12 o'clock for me. I'm good. We can do that. So it's like I've started getting a lot more clients in the Pacific time zone.
no,
So it's
why not?
like
What? Yeah,
so
why
many
not?
options.
Yeah, today's technology allows to do that. I mean, I've been on podcasts. I'm going to be on a podcast later again today, a radio show in the UK. Then been on a podcast in Australia a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
This Zoom reality allows for all that.
Yep. Same here. I've got clients all the way out in Australia, over Pacific US, UK, Canada. It's like, hey, find someone that works with you and went on your hours. Like it's so flexible nowadays and it's so easy to do. But yeah, I love
Right.
it. But I know we've hinted around a few times that somebody needs to work with a coach and that you're a coach. So I know I've had you like hostage here for like 30 minutes or so. So tell us about your business. Who do you like to work with? What is it exactly that you do? And how does someone find you if they want to hire you to do it?
Well, the best way to find me and learn more about me is my website, balance6.biz. So the word balance and then the number 6.biz. They can also get the book, my book, from that website right there. They can learn more about me and what I do. So that's the best place to start. What I do is I have two ways. If people want to work with me on a one-to-one basis, they can work with, again, one-to-one or in a group setting. And those are the two possibilities that they can work with. In a group setting, that means there's going to be, at this point, I'll limit the group size to 5 so that I can still give each person individual attention. Um, Sessions are usually about 45 minutes. Sometimes they last an hour. In between sessions, the clients are given homework. People don't like the term homework, so I call them practices. What we learn, we practice. What we practice, we become. It's my motto. And the more diligently my clients practice the things I recommend, the sooner they see results. Coaching is a long-term process. So, and we live in an instant gratification society. So that's why part of my initial conversation with my clients is always finding out how long the challenges that they're facing have been part of their lives. And most of the time it's, years, sometimes decades. And I ask them that question exactly for that reason, because I say, it takes time for you to make these changes. And so most of my clients are with me, a year, couple of years. I ask them to make a 6-month commitment, not to me, but to themselves. again, for that particular reason. You cannot expect something to change overnight. That's just not how coaching works.
It took years to get you here. It's not going to get undone in weeks.
Exactly. That's exactly
Yep.
right. And so along the way, we celebrate baby steps. So we look and focus on the things that you did do, not on the things you did not do. You know, the kind of the idea of the carrot and the stick. Okay, I'm a carrot person. We don't need the stick because we already know that were things we didn't do. So it doesn't help for me to chastise them for not doing something. What I do ask them though is why they think they didn't do what we talked about, so that we can dig deeper into what it is and uncover the things that stop them from doing that. For instance, interruptions or not, like lack of planning, lack of scheduling, or not time blocking, and things like that.
I
Um,
love that. Like, is there any particular size of company that you work with? Like people that are solopreneurs or that have a team, or like who are your favorites?
so I work from solopreneurs up to about 20 operators. The business owner or the leader of the company really for them has to be part of it. I was hired once by a guy, and he wanted me to train his management team, but the management team saw actually no purpose in it. They didn't feel like that was needed, and he was never there for the sessions. So after a couple of months, that just ended. So that's really I work with usually. Well, I actually work with the business owner. The business owner is always part of it. We can do the entire team, and so I have a client that it's a family business. There's a dad and three sons working together. So we are on the call together. And so for them, they have to get clear on who is doing what, et cetera, et cetera. So the clients usually have a service of sorts. So my ideal clients are attorneys, accountants, insurance agents, financial planners, chiropractors, dentists, doctors that have the independent, practice, um,
So
therapists who
people that
try.
trade time for money, basically time and expertise for money.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes a lot of sense because if you're trading your time and expertise for money, you need to be really efficient with how you manage your time.
yes, right, yeah. And part of it is people who do consulting service. But yeah, I think you hit it on the head. That's really my target market. Um,
Awesome. Well, I think that's really good. And I'll make sure that link is wherever you're watching this video from, all over the interwebs. The link to his website will be on here somewhere. So to wrap it up here, do you have any final like advice or tips that you want to share with our audience?
a couple things. Stop procrastinating. That's one of the things that Brian Tracy talks about. Do something, however little it may be, every single day towards your goal. Just a little thing, a little something. So at the end of the day, you want to feel content with with your accomplishment. There's nothing worse than getting to the end of the day and feeling frustrated and disappointed at the results. I haven't done this, I haven't done that, because that saps energy out of you. Just take little steps. Two, have a plan for every day. We talked about that before. Like Christina, have a clear plan for the day, what it is you're going to do during that day, and then stick to that plan. Learn to say no. It's a big one. Learn to say no. There's very different ways that you can do that, and that can help you with how to say no, how to set boundaries. Because I only work with nice people, and what happens to nice people is that they get taken advantage of. So you have to set boundaries. And last but not least, put yourself first. If you cannot drive your car if there's no gas in it, or if the oil is gone, it's the same thing. If you don't recharge your batteries, you cannot be a good business owner, entrepreneur, parent, spouse, boss. It doesn't matter. So that would be um, my couple of recommendations. But there's more. But please go to my website, check it out. I have a whole slew of podcast episodes on a lot of these topics right there available as well. You can obviously get my book. That's really a great place to start, because if you read the book and start implementing some of the things that are in there, that has life changing effects on you. I promise you.
I love all of it. Thank you so much for coming on today and for sharing all this amazing information with our audience. This has been truly helpful.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you, Christina.
Awesome. So, entrepreneurs, this is your call to take action, right? Join our community at etatoday.zone and learn how to build a business that enables your lifestyle instead of taking over your life. Until next time, guys, thank you.